Hello everybody. It's April 28th. It is snowing and blowing outside and I'm in here. My last video I showed you how I was acid washing the floor to make it porous to accept the epoxy. I did that 3 times and now it has the texture of fine sandpaper, very uniform. It's porous. The other thing I did is I turned up the room temperature to 70 degrees. That wasn't such a bad idea, but it wasn't really the right thing to do. The optimum application temperature of this epoxy, which is Sherwin-Williams Macropoxy 646, is a surface temperature of 70 degrees. So I walked around with my little temperature gun, and while the room indicated 70 Fahrenheit, the floor was reading around 74, 75, up to 78 Fahrenheit in some spots. Wasn't what I planned, but then I remembered. The thermostat has 2 sensors, one for ambient air temperature and the other for floor temperature. In fact, there's 2 for floor temperature. In case one breaks, you can switch to the other one. Since I put this system in, I know where the sensors are. I should draw a map. But the sensors are right here where these cans are, and there's one on that side and one on this side. So I switched the thermostat to go from ambient to floor temperature. So it's saying, okay, the floor temperature here is close to 80, and the air, let's see how we got it now. And air temperature is 70. Well, it's obviously going to cool off in here, but with a 70-degree floor, that's all I really care about, so that I'm applying this at the right temperature, okay? I've also brought the cans in from the other room, which does not have a heated floor, and I set them on the floor to bring this up to temperature too, so that when I have pot time, it'll catalyze at the temperature that it's supposed to, at the speed it's supposed to. One thing I like about this product is that you mix it in equal parts. That's kind of a big deal to me. Some aren't like that. You put so many parts hardener, so many parts pigment, whatever. So what I got, I'm not going to mix 2 gallons at once. I'm going to do less than that. I got a metal paint can. I will put in the hardener first, which is thicker, if I recall, than the pigment, and then I will use a stirring device on my drill gun to thoroughly put those 2 together to blend them. And then they have what they call pot time, which is you let it set. That's what I'll do. And then I'll start pouring it around the edges. I'll use small foam brushes and such to push it up underneath the metal trim work, which you may or may not be able to see on camera. But that way it's protected completely all the way around the floor. So, okay, that's part of it. So, metal bucket. I believe a number 5 bucket will work. Number 1 and number 2 aren't recommended because these chemicals will dissolve plastics. Another thing that's kind of cool about these is that in a metal bucket or something like this, where you have some left over, you just wait till it's hardened and then you get a pocket knife underneath it and you can peel it off like a glove. So you don't lose your really cool little metal bucket. I did notice one thing. I call this a quality metal bucket. It's rolled to be watertight, fluid tight, all the way around the edge. Some of them aren't built as well, and you'll see that they poured a sealant inside of there. I have absolutely no confidence in the chemical resistance of that sealant. So look for a bucket with a rolled edge. If you're really old school, see if you can find one that was tinned. So there you go. So it is 2 parts, A and B. If you go on YouTube and you put in Macropoxy 646, you'll see lots of videos about the product. I'm going with the default white since this is a food service space. Yes, you can have it pigmented to a lot of different colors. If you want a black floor or a blue floor, yeah, you can do that. Okay, I got these, which are kind of supposed to meet the need as far as chemical resistance, so I can pour a bead close to the edges here. And then I've got disposable foam brushes for edge work so that I can pull that away but get a good layer in there. You do want it thick but not too thick, because in my case I have a 12 by 20 room. I don't want to run out before the floor is done. So anyway, there's that. Now, big deal for safety. This stuff stinks. I've seen videos on YouTube where contractor is advertising lowest price in town and none of the workers are wearing respirators. That is totally bogus. I would send that guy home without a paycheck. Don't even start. People don't have PPE, send them away. This is a NIOSH respirator. The pink on the front means it's got a P100 pre-filter for particulate matter dust. But what's really cool about it is this is organic vapor, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen chloride, chlorine, hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen sulfide, P100, and it also does acid. That's the big deal. I need acid protection. So I will be wearing this. The tape I put over here is kind of a common tape. I seal my respirators when I'm done with them because air contact will cause them to age out faster. I don't really expect them to do a lot for me more than a year past when I buy them. But for that year, I cover up the inlets on them so that they're not aging, because there is activated charcoal and other agents in here. And if you've never seen it. So I don't have to give up a mask I like, and I can just buy replacement cartridges. Come on, Daddy. All right, so the first thing I've got to do for prep work is I need to mask surfaces I don't want to get the epoxy on. The number one I don't want to get the epoxy on is on the trench drains. So, screwdriver, I'll be pulling all the screws out of the trench drain. I'll be pulling the grating out. All the screws are going to go into, they're going to go into a medicine bottle so I don't lose them, and I'll put them up on the shelf there so I don't lose the screws. And I'll take those out, and then I'll wrap from the top lip, this is plastic here, and I will just fold some masking tape there to keep that trench section from getting filled with the epoxy. When it comes time to take the tape off, I'll use a mat knife, and you can just cut the epoxy and then peel away the tape. I've done this before, it worked. But I don't want to have the grids in here during that time period, because I just don't want to have to deal with epoxy on it. It's very rugged stuff. The other part is, behind you is the pit for the drain system. I want to have a nice clean edge down by the floor. So I will wrap around that pit that rises above floor grade. I'll wrap that to keep paint off of it. The bottom of the door sill, I'll wrap that with masking tape. And I have 2 risers coming up behind you. One for water and for the electrical that controls the floor heat. So those have to be masked. Usually when I do this, I'm just going to pop open the garage door. That's the easiest thing to do, because when the garage this is all done, I've got diamond tread aluminum that goes down over that surface there. It protects the exposed insulation, the wooden form, everything else. Go over that with a pallet jack. It's not going to chip the edges of the concrete, anything else. So it'll take care of that. I wanted to show you just kind of what's here, the devil's in the details. Last but not least is that what was a real benefit to me while I was working on this is I have water in this space. I have water directly on the other side of this space, and I use freeze-proof water fittings going through the wall, going out there. So the pressure washer that I use for cleaning the floor and getting all the fine grit, you know, what was left behind from the acid wash, the pressure washer in its water supply is out there. All the water in here and out there runs through a 1 micron filter, which surprisingly there's quite a bit of rust here, even though there's a 1 micron filter on the other end. It's just legacy stuff in the pipes moving through. So it's good to have a water supply. That's my bottom line. Have a water supply that doesn't get in the way. It's fine to pull a hose to the door, but you don't want hoses on the floor in here that you can't get out of the way. Do yourself a favor. The dehumidifier, by the way, that's brilliant. That works so very well for drying this room out. It's 30% humidity in here right now. Oh, 25%. It's 71 degrees. It's really comfortable. So I'm going to get to work now. I'm going to be pulling this up. I'm going to do what I told you I was going to do. And I would just say to you, start off with a good list. I have a list. Mask trench. Set the floor temperature. Read instructions. I've done this before, but I've got the instructions from Macropoxy 646. They're in the project folder, and I'm going to go get them and read them again. Mask the pit. Pot time. Make sure I keep track of that because it varies with temperature. Mask the door, and 4 o'clock jump is coming on in 20 minutes. That's totally awesome. Okay, so if you're doing a project like this, plan, plan, plan. And that's the sump system. That was just working. So plan, 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 keep notes, have all your resources ready, and best of luck to you. But the big thing is, when you get that stuff out, please protect yourself, okay? Please protect yourself. Okay, I gotta get to work. 4 o'clock job, 20 minutes. Have a good time. See you. Bye-bye. Okay, I've pulled the covers for the trenches out, okay? And I wanted to show you something here. These were masked before the concrete went down, but I did not do a very good job of sealing up to here. What happened was concrete got down into the channel inside of there and acted like grout, holding this in place. You need to be able to pop these off easily for cleaning out the trench. So it took me a little while chiseling. I got all of the grout, if you will, out from behind there. I'll sand everything off from here. And I'm concerned I don't want epoxy getting in there because that will be even harder to chisel out. So I will more than likely leave the trench open for when I seal the floor, wait for the epoxy to cure, and then I'll run a, let's say an angle grinder with a sanding head or something down alongside this edge here to get the epoxy off of it, or it might peel off too if I just use a sharp razor tool. But my point to you is you don't want grout getting down in here or cement getting in there, and you don't want epoxy getting there between here and here, or you'll have a dickens of a time getting these parts out, and you do need to be able to do it. Now that's it. So beware. The other thing I was thinking about doing is I have some, I have grease, and I may just grease these up. You know, put the tape on here, grease this up here, and keep my fingers crossed. I won't put the screws back in because it's just a waste of time. So that's it.